Hey guys, welcome back to 48 Minutes or Less NBA Podcast. It's one of your hosts, George, and joining me is a defender on the wing, Lewis, and as always,
guys.
the big man in the middle, George.
I'll just do it.
No, I got it.
And you messed up our intro too, man. It's welcome back to NBA, to 48 Minutes or Less NBA Podcast. We bring you
Do you need me to help you, George?
NBA.
I got it.
When we give you all things NBA,
I got it.
48 minutes or less than 48
Okay,
minutes.
I got it.
Okay.
Forgot my name.
Hey guys, welcome back to 48 Minutes or Less NBA Podcast, where we bring you your weekly NBA content in 48 minutes or less. As always, I'm your host, George, and joining me is the defender in the wing, Lewis, and as always, the big man in the middle, Sawyer. Hey guys, you want to say hi?
No.
We talked about this.
Yeah, we don't want to say hi anymore.
We're not doing that.
Why not?
It's
You
always
guys are
awkward.
Why do we
unfriendly.
need to say hey and hi?
It's
Like,
always
there's no
awkward,
point.
man.
Okay, if you guys don't want to say hi anymore.
Okay.
All right, guys. So for this week, we want to do something a little bit different. There hasn't been that much big events happening in the NBA. Games have been played. James Harden has scored 60 like every other day. Luka continues to dominate. But we want to do, since it's been about a little bit over a month now that the NBA has started, we want to sort of run, each of us kind of found 5 topics or 5 facts and kind of like opinionated facts, which doesn't mean facts, but 5 things that we've noticed over the course of the first month and a half. And we sort of run them down. We'll each do about one, and then we'll talk a little bit on each and go through there until we get, we're going to have 15 total. So which of you guys want to start?
Sorry, if you want to take the lead on this one.
Yeah, sure. So, my first fact has actually been the surprise of Brandon Clark. He was the 21st overall pick this year in the draft, but he's got the best field goal percentage of all rookies that have played at least 15 minutes or more, shooting 64% from the field. I just think that's incredible just because he's not, a top 5, top 10 pick, let alone, he's not a high caliber player that you would think would be doing well, but he's playing really well and he's actually outperforming Jaren Jackson Jr. a little bit. So it's a nice surprise.
Yeah, so I remember going into the draft, a lot of experts are saying that he was actually a lot better than Rui, who they were on the same college team. And then a lot of people were surprised when he fell so far in the draft, considering some people even had him as top 5 on their board. I think part of it has to do with what some people call the ageism, where he's a 23-year-old rookie, so he's a lot older, so people want to hedge their bets on younger players that might have more potential. But Brandon Clark, he's shown just in the first month or so of the season that he's going to have a really long NBA career, because he's one of those do-it-all type of guys that can rim run, doesn't have a high usage, but can make the most of his touches. And I also believe he has the highest true shooting of all rookies as well.
Yeah, he does.
I'm pretty excited for him. I was pretty high on him before the draft. But again, like Lois said, it has to do with his age and the fact that people consider that he probably doesn't have superstar potential. But if he has all-star potential or even sub-all-star potential with Triple J and with Ja, the Memphis Grizzlies are in a really good place for the future.
Yeah. So for my first fact, which I thought was really cool, is that this is actually the longest trade drought in the last 50 years, not counting lockout seasons. So what that means is that so far this season, no trade has been done in August, September, October, or November. In fact, the last trade done was the Russell Westbrook trade back in July. Was it June? Back in June. No, I guess July. The last trade done.
It was July, yeah.
Yeah, back in July. So I was thinking why that could be and what the reason for that was. And part of it was, so according to this stat, about only 43.6% of all players actually stayed with their team this offseason. Which is the lowest mark in the 21st century. So that means that a lot of these players won't actually be eligible for trade until, I believe, December 15th, which is coming up. What do you guys think is the reason for this?
I think it's like exactly what you said, the fact that not a lot of players have stayed on the same team, and the players that did stay on the same team, a lot of them were either young players or like established like vets for the team, like Steph Curry and LeBron James, people that already signed long-term deals beforehand. Everybody was kind of waiting for this past year to this was supposed to be a big offseason, and it kind of was. So there was a lot of trades, lots of free agents moving on, stuff like that. But I actually do think that in the next 2 weeks or so, when that December 15th, which I believe is correct, deadline comes around, I can pretty much say that there's probably going to be a few trades happening more than likely. But I guess it's all a matter of let's see, because I think a lot of teams still don't quite know where they're at.
Yeah, I would say that it's also caused by the fact that this is probably the most open the NBA has been in a really long time, where it's not one team that's clearly better than all the rest. And so a lot of teams don't want to trade out players because they still have hope for playoffs or even championship aspirations. And so that's holding them back from trades. But I think as the season goes on, we'll actually see a couple of trades go down.
Yeah, I believe it could end up being an interesting trade deadline. So, George, if you want to go on with your fact.
Well, actually, hold on.
Yeah, what's up, sorry?
I actually can't quite see there being a blockbuster trade of any kind even going on, even up until the trade deadline. Like, I think Bradley Beal is probably the only name out there that might actually get traded that's considered like a big name, just because of the amount of movement that there's been.
The problem is any of the teams that would actually, I would say, shoot for like Bradley Beal, for instance, like what do they have to give up that they would take, especially after the Wizards saw like the haul that Anthony Davis got or the haul that they got for Paul George. And not saying that Bradley Beal is as good a player as both of them, but I mean, he is certainly a player that could take a team over the top.
Yeah, and then there was recent reports where Bradley Beal did state that he was not the type of guy to like leave his team and like join other superstars. That those were other guys, that he wasn't that type of guy. So, and he did just sign the extension, so I don't necessarily see a trade coming, at least. For me, it's more like maybe like pieces like JJ Redick could potentially be moved to a competitive team if the right offer comes along for New Orleans. That's kind of my thought of the type of trades that might happen before the trade deadline.
So for my facts, my first fact is that the Spurs are on pace right now to win only 27 games according to 538. I think it might be a little bit better than that personally, but this could be the first time they don't make the postseason in 22 years. Right now, they currently have a negative 2.4 net rating. That ranks them as 20th in the NBA with a 110 offensive rating, which is top 10, and a 113th defensive rating, which is bottom 5. I'm honestly pretty surprised. I always feel like the Spurs are going to make the playoffs. But to me, what's most surprising of everything, of all of it, is a defensive rating. Because I thought with with DeJounte Murray coming back, that they would be a better defensive team than last year. Yeah, I guess with LaMarcus Aldridge, even though he was never like a stellar defender, just getting older, it's not helping their defense. But still, I'm pretty surprised. What do you guys think?
I don't think it's going to continue. I mean, I believe in Pop and that he'll get his team on track. I'm certain they're going to make a few trades and switch things up a little bit. But they always sneak up, and you kind of forget about them, and then they just sneak right back up into the conversation with the playoffs. So, I mean, I think it's possible still. I think it's just wait and see right now. I mean, we're only so many games into the season right
now. You said they're going to make a few trades, and we talked about the DeMar DeRozan trade on a podcast, was it 2 weeks ago or last week? But, I mean, the Spurs aren't known for making in-season trades.
No, that's the thing. And, yeah, so there's been some talks about how Pop might be like taking this season more hands off because he's trying to train up Becky Hammond and then Tim Duncan, both of the assistant coaches, to kind of get them their feet wet, I guess. And there's some talks that Tim Duncan could potentially take over the coaching role once Pop retires. But I just think part of the Spurs problem has to do more with personnel, where like they could play lineups with like say LaMarcus Aldridge and Jakob Poeltl, and which would be better defensive lineups, but they would give up a lot on the offensive end. So they have way too many one-way guys and not enough two-way guys. And that's why I just think that they've been having issues where either they put up all offense or no defense, and then all defense and no offense. So, and then you can't win basketball games like that.
So my second fact actually is the fact that Luka Doncic has 7 triple-doubles so far this season. He had only 8 all of last year. How many of you guys think he's going to do this year, huh?
Yeah, I don't think he'll get the Russell Westbrook half of the season. He gets a triple double, but I think 20 something, maybe 30s if he stat pads hard at the end.
I mean, it kind of depends on what he's trying to do. I think at least for Luka, there's the possibility that he is stat padding, but I think he's just trying to win games and it is working, which will lead on to my second fact. since you did mention them, I'll just talk about it as well. My second fact is about the Dallas Mavericks and how they're running the best offense in the NBA right now at 116 offensive rating. And that's all due to Luka. So as long as they keep with that 116 pace, I can see him putting up maybe 20, 25 triple-doubles by the end of the year, leading them all the way to the playoffs.
Yeah, it also helps that I would say like the players that they have around, Luka makes better. Luka's sort of like LeBron in that sense that he makes his teammates better, and so even though they didn't have the most successful offseason, the places they do have are playing really well.
I would say I would think they believe they had a pretty good offseason considering they felt they got Porzingis for like relatively little.
I don't consider it because the offseason was them trying to get Danny Green and they failed drastically, and all they got was Seth Curry.
Yeah, I wouldn't really consider it a successful offseason, but they got enough in the sense of they were able to keep and they got like a deep bench and they were able to keep some rotational pieces and stuff like that.
I think the thing for them is with Luka having this ascension as quick as he has, the Dallas Mavericks can't get over their heads and still, I would say, take it slow. At least wait until 2021 offseason to start making big moves because there's no players out there next year that are worth giving a lot of money to. So don't believe in fool's gold because that's going to hurt your chances of winning a championship. And you have something really good right now.
Yeah, some teams think that, like, man, we're doing really good right now. Let's like all our eggs in one basket kind of thing. And instead of just being like, if we just wait this out another year or two, these guys will be just as good. We'll be able to develop others further and everything and even be an even better team for a longer period of time.
I just wonder if another topic that I'd like to eventually talk about in another pod would be with the Dallas Mavericks and then about Kristaps Porzingis' ability to scale from, say, a 44-win team to a 60-win team. Considering the steps that Luka has taken forward, I just wonder if he could be that second guy. But that's for another pod. If you want to move on to your fact, George, because I just gave mine a second ago.
So for my second fact, it's actually that Dwight Howard is a valuable role player. So right now he's averaging 7 points per game, 7 rebounds. He has a 73% true shooting and a 17 PR, only 20 minutes a game. But moving away from the stats, it's the things that can't be seen, the intangibles, the way he's behaving with his teammates, the way he's being a good veteran, and also the fact that he's playing really good defense, and that helps to move Anthony Davis to have to play less center, so he gets less tired moving on into the offseason. Into the playoffs where he had probably spent more time playing that center position in order to win games. And it's just nice because the Lakers were looking, when they lost to Marcus Cousins, people were like, oh, it's crazy that you're signing Dwight Howard. He's the worst. And to me, Dwight Howard was a player that was great on the Magic and was an all-star and I would say a future Hall of Famer. And it's just nice to see that he's actually valuable still in the NBA. And an NBA that moved away from him.
Yeah, he just looks happy. Like, you could see him smiling on the sideline and everything. And he's finally, I think, at peace with who he is and the way he plays. But I think the Lakers just have to be happy with what he's doing for them because it takes a lot of like stress off of their shoulders because, like you said, with DeMarcus Cousins going down, they were like, man, we're going to have to play Anthony Davis now at center more often than this and that. But, hey, you have JaVale McGee, you have Dwight Howard. Like, you don't really have to play Anthony Davis at center nearly as much as you maybe once thought you did, which is always nice.
Yeah, I thought both JaVale McGee as well and then Dwight Howard have done a really good job holding up that center spot to kind of move Anthony Davis from that. And they've actually been better in those minutes that Anthony Davis has been at center, which is really impressive. Come playoffs, we'll see what happens with both of them, how they can get schemed out of a game. But it's just nice to see Dwight Howard I think his name has been tarnished because it's been a while since he was last in the Magic, so it's kind of nice to see him kind of get a redemption story similar to Derrick Rose last year.
Yeah, and that just rolls right into talking about Dwight Howard just rolls right into my next fact about the Lakers' 17-3 start is their best start in franchise history. Dwight Howard has helped with some of that. I guess LeBron and Anthony Davis helped some, but
just a little.
Just a little.
Just a little.
But
more Dwight Howard, more JaVale McGee, more Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, less LeBron.
Yeah, man. We don't need LeBron out there 30, 35 plus minutes. 20, 25. It's good. It's good. But no, I think that this is probably the best they thought they could have done. I think they started a lot better than they probably hoped for. And that's going to really help them a lot if they can kind of keep up a similar pace, because they'll be able to help manage LeBron and Anthony Davis when it comes to later on in the season. Maybe they wouldn't have to go nearly as hard as like LeBron was saying that he would have had to last year, where he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to pick it up now. You know what I mean?
I mean, at least for me, it makes sense why they would be 17-3. It just, when you have 7 MVPs on your team, LeBron James has 4, JaVale McGee has 3, checked into 4 MVPs. It just makes sense that you would start 17-3, right? And I just think, I'm surprised because usually LeBron James teams take a while to kind of go into that mode and learn to play together. But I think, I'm not sure if it's LeBron's age and he's just become more cerebral. And he's played with so many different types of players that he can kind of now mold his game around those players. It's just really impressive to see, and hopefully it leads to better things. I'm in a mixed pod because I'm not necessarily the biggest Lakers fan, but I love LeBron. So it's like, we'll see what happens with them.
It's pretty nice, I have to say. It's better than I expected. We'll just have to see if everything works out. But I mean, I feel like this season hasn't had a lot of like surprises. We haven't seen a huge team like just get really bad or a bad team start playing really, really good. But I guess the Phoenix Suns. But it's nice to see that the Lakers are starting out this well. And I'm interested if they're going to continue shooting to try to end up with the 1 seed at the end of it all. But I guess we will have to see. Lewis, you want to move on to your next factor?
Yeah, so for talking about a player that we've known LeBron to lead many teams to success, one player that has kind of struggled with that and has constantly kept trying to prove himself to be a leader is Kyrie Irving. And that's where my third fact comes in. Currently, the Brooklyn Nets have a better record without Kyrie than with him. So with him, they have a 4-7 record, while without him, they have a 6-3 record, and that's with Spencer Dinwiddie leading the charge. Since Kyrie's been out, Dinwiddie has averaged about 25 points per game. And so I just don't know if part of that is actually because of Kyrie and his personality and all the things that happened in Boston and the questions that even he had before LeBron joined the Cavaliers back in 2014. I don't think that Kyrie's a bad, like a cancer for a team. I just think part of it has to do with getting a fit. And like Spencer Dinwiddie has been playing with these guys for multiple years now, while Kyrie's still kind of getting into the mode. And they have had a pretty easy schedule in the games that Kyrie's been out, so they haven't had like the toughest competition. So I don't know, what do you guys make of it? Do you think Kyrie's actually the cancer that everybody says he is?
I just think that he went out so early on in the season, like only 11 games in, that the sample size isn't necessarily there for right now anyways. But Spencer Dinwiddie's been in Kenny Atkinson's system now for what, like 3-4 years, something like that. So he obviously knows it, and it's not like Dinwiddie is doing something abnormal. We knew he was this good of a player. He was doing similar stuff last year, maybe not exactly as good, but he was doing similar things than he was doing last year as well. I don't think it's necessarily Kyrie being a cancer or anything like that. I just think Dinwiddie knows the offense a little bit better, and the rust has shaken off the rest of the players. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of happens as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think we would have to wait and see when Kyrie does come back. But it makes sense. Spencer Dinwiddie has been playing with the Nets for longer. He understands the system more. And honestly, my only problem with Kyrie is he plays a lot of hero ball. And so that could affect his teammates because, I don't know, I feel like you'll look at like the Rockets, for instance, and the teammates are just standing around. And I feel like that happens a lot when you also watch Kyrie. The teammates are just standing around. And since these guys haven't been doing it for 3-4 years the way the Rockets are, they're probably not adjusted to it. So they're like, screw this guy. If I'm not even touching the ball, I'm just not even going to play. So maybe that happened in the beginning. But I think it'll adjust. Kyrie's a great talent, and to say that he makes teams worse, I think is incorrect. I just think teams need to adjust around him. He doesn't know how to adjust around teammates. You know, there's your superstars like James Harden that teams need to adjust around him, and there's your superstars like Paul George that can just adjust to any situation. And Kyrie might be more like Harden.
And you know what? We also have to remember the Nets are 10-10 without Kevin Durant. They have not won a single game with Kevin Durant on their team. I think that's something that nobody is talking about right now. But I'll digress.
You're right. Kevin Durant, they're 10-10 without Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant sucks, right? Is that what you're trying?
Yeah, that's my hot take right there.
Kevin Durant's lost 10 games already this season. He's leading a 500 team.
All I'm saying is that Russell Westbrook was averaging triple doubles without Kevin Durant. That's all I'm saying.
All I'm saying is that the Golden State Warriors are making a comeback during that Toronto season, and Kevin Durant came back, and it just derailed the entire finals.
Oh shit, guys! I just got a tweet from This Is Not Kevin Durant's fake account. It says Kevin Durant is the best player that's ever played basketball ever.
All right, we can move on, George.
Yeah.
Come on.
This is not
Fuck you,
Kevin
sir.
Durant. This is not Kevin Durant's fake Instagram profile.
All right, welcome to we talk about shit that Kevin Durant may or may not have said podcast.
All right. So for my third fact, I think it's that teams continue to prove that there are more avenues to finding quality rotation pieces without having to go through the draft. And, I mean, I'm going to name two Miami Heat players right now, but Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson both went undrafted, and they have both become really good pieces for Miami's successful early on in the season. But it's not just them. We've seen it with an NBA champion last year, Fred VanVleet, and how a lot of these guys that go undrafted, I think, have a chip on their shoulder and just have something to prove, and they play hard and they play smart basketball. And they learn like the little things to make their game better because they just haven't been great as long, so they have to get better at different little aspects in their game. And so I feel like a lot of the teams, when they think about tanking, they think about making a better team, it's always going to be through the draft or through the trades. But if you continue to scout and you send scouts out, and Miami's really good at this, San Antonio's really good at this, Toronto's really good at this, sending scouts out to the G League, overseas, to different avenues. I mean, you have like players that you wouldn't expect come up to the NBA just because they work hard and these guys scouted them. And it just continues to show that there's more than one way to make it into the NBA. And it's nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the same can be said for players that play all 4 years in college, and then come out.
Are you a teenager, bro?
No, so yeah, I mean, like having the players that the same thing can be said for players that come out that play all 4 years of college, like Mark Brogdon, even like Brandon Clark and stuff, who played like either all 4 or 3 years of college. You know, people are thinking about, oh, there's not much to develop there. They're not going to be good. What's the point of taking them? And they end up falling, and they're actually quality players. I just think that, like you said, just people need to get over this idea of I need a top pick in order to succeed in the league. No, you need proper scouting and development of players in order to get anywhere in the league. Unless you're a like high market team like the Lakers and LeBron just wants to come to you.
Yeah, it actually, I think a perfect example of it is the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks. How the New York Knicks were getting these high picks, high lottery picks, and the Nets were just getting like good quality rotation pieces through different avenues, through smart trades. And when you have a superstar looking to leave a team and they're looking at the Nets and they're like, oh, if that team had one superstar, two superstars, they're a championship contender because they have good quality rotation pieces. Compared to the Knicks, who have nothing, who just have future prospects that might be good. And I think LeBron showed it last year when he went to the Lakers, and they just weren't good because all they had were future, like players that could be good rather than players that were already good.
I just wonder if maybe that's an issue with the way that players are being scouted today. Is necessarily we look too much at potential instead of finding the players that are actually good and can contribute, but might not have the potential. So maybe that's where certain players go undrafted or a lot. And you see it with a lot of guys that are impact players that were drafted in the second round. Jimmy Butler, Paul Millsap, PJ Tucker, Draymond Green, all these guys that were drafted in the second round and become impact players.
If you look at last year's NBA champions, not a single one of them was a lottery pick.
Exactly. So the highest pick was
Kawhi
Leonard, which was 15th.
That's
so
a lottery pick.
Oh yeah, like a late lottery.
So
that's
like
one pick away from not being a lottery pick.
Yeah. So the only lottery pick was Kawhi Leonard. He was the highest drafted player because Marcus Gasol was second round, Lowry was second round, Siakam was 27th, VanVleet was undrafted, Norman Powell was second round, and sometimes I don't know if that's like an issue with scouting and how we're scouting. It's just kind of like a question like. that I don't know if scouts have to answer the way they were evaluating talent.
Well, I mean, like, look at the Suns, for example. They're a good example of having high picks doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a great team. Like, how many top picks have they had in the last, say, even 5 years, the number of top picks that they've had? And what, 2 of them have made only one really so far, Devin Booker, which wasn't even their highest pick. He was like a late
Devin
lottery
Booker.
pick.
He was
Devin
13th.
Booker was, of all their lotteries, he was their latest lottery pick.
Yeah, so it's not even just, it's literally not even about having top picks. It literally comes down to scouting and development, because the Suns are just awful at it.
Yeah. I think this could be a good topic for another podcast. How to evaluate scouting and development, and what the importance of team development as well as being drafted into the right situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
I think
affect
it
players.
would. And
That's an upcoming pod. You can always find great content.
You heard
at
it here.
48
You
minutes.
heard it here first.
You heard it here.
First. You heard it
At
here
48
first,
minutes
guys.
or less. Shameless plug in my own podcast.
self-promotion in your own
Yep.
podcast.
Living it up.
So my fourth fact, and it's more of just like an interesting antidote, like interesting thing I thought, was that the Lakers, Bucks, Raptors, Heat, and Rockets haven't lost to a team with a record below 500. So they aren't losing to bad teams.
Yeah, I actually think that's really, really interesting, because it doesn't sound like, oh, that's a weird play, but that's how you make it into the playoffs. That's how you get a top seed. You're a team that competes against good teams, and you beat up on bad teams, and that's how you find success in the NBA. That's exactly how you do it, and that's why I would say all of those teams are, especially the Raptors, which people were so low on. Some people were even like, oh, they're not gonna make the playoffs. No, because this team knows how to beat up on bad teams. And that's just how you make it.
Yeah, so like George said, that's kind of a great combination for a great regular season team, is to beat the guys that you know you can't beat. And then that's how you rack up those wins. And then, yeah, and that's how you rack up those wins and eventually kind of secure yourself a top seed in the NBA. And then this kind of comes to, I'm just gonna join that into what my next one was, which was that there are a considerable number of bad teams in the NBA. The bottom half of the NBA is a lot worse than I think a lot of people expected coming into the season, which makes it easier for teams like the Bucks and the Raptors and stuff to kind of eat all they can, to feast on all they can eat, right? So, and talking about my pick was that it's really weird that currently the 8th seed in the West is an 8-10 Suns. Which is really, sorry, I'm kind of like losing my train of thought. The 8th seed in the West is 8-10, which is the Suns, which is surprising because the West has always been pretty deep when it comes to, at least the top 9-10 teams tend to have close to 500 or above 500 records. So I'm not sure if that's saying something about the way that the NBA is currently constructed, with the Eastern Conference looking even worse than it had in years.
We're only 15 to 20 games into the season,
No. Overreacting is my number one thing. Hot takes, baby. Hot takes. NBA's in a bad place.
Well, like, for example, like the Magic aren't a bad team, though. I mean, like, you could say that, like you said, like, the bottom of the NBA is bad, and it's not by choice, but, like, the Magic, for instance, they've got a great defense. They just can't really get it together on offense. And so that really kind of, if their offense picks up even a few extra points per game, they're going to be closer to a 500 win team, or not 500 wins, but an average team, 500%.
Yeah, and I guess you can argue that, like, some of these teams have been, like, I think the Pistons have been a lot worse than expected. The Magic did suffer some injuries recently. The Suns were playing really well, but then they suffered injuries to both Ricky Rubio and Aaron Baines to set them back. The Kings have injuries to De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley. So I think that's something to be said about. Maybe that's why the teams haven't been living up to expectations in that sense, or why the bottom half has been so bad, because you have, like, your teams that are going to be bad, but then you have certain teams that are better than they should be, but they've suffered some injuries, and that's kind of lowered their standings. But at the same time, it's also teams like the Bucks and the Lakers, and like you even said in your thing, that a ton of teams haven't lost to any teams under 500. That just makes the standings in the bottom half look even worse.
Yeah, but I mean, the way I see it is like, yeah, they're bad, but most of the teams are actually competitive. Like watching the Wizards currently sit 6-11, and they're not an easy team to beat because yeah, they don't play defense, but they're what the second best offense right now in the NBA. They can go lights out shooting and just beat a game and win a game, and then you have like the New Orleans Pelicans, and they've I don't think they've had a healthy roster the entire year. And they're pretty good. I would say they're competitive.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with them when Zion comes back. I don't know. That could be another. Maybe that should have been my pick. The amount of injuries that we've seen so far this season.
Yes, there has been. Actually, talking about Zion, my next fact is about another player, and it's about Brandon Ingram. And Brandon Ingram, I think, will be the most sought out after unrestricted free agent next summer. And he's been playing amazing basketball. Probably the best. There's even talks about him being better than Ben Simmons already, which I think is kind of an overreaction. But so far for the year, he is just a second here. So over the year, he's averaging 25.9 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He's shooting 40% from 3. He's shooting well from the free throw. He's really changing up his game. And even though he's currently, I would say, not playing good defense because no one on that team's really playing defense except for Drew Holiday. Plays defense every night. That's my boy. Drew Holiday in Miami. Let's go.
Yo, that would be nice.
He's been shown that he can be part of a successful defense. My only concern with Brandon Ingram is he's shown that he can play really, really good basketball when he's not alongside another star. And so what happens when Zion Williamson comes back? It's been shown that when LeBron doesn't play, Brandon Ingram plays better. It's been shown that when Lonzo was out, Brandon Ingram was playing better in the Lakers. And so can he actually be your first or second best player on a team with multiple All-Stars or multiple superstars? And can he actually be part of a winning record? Because he has never been part of a winning record in his career.
Yeah, I think Brandon Ingram has actually benefited the most, I feel, from the trade at any of the other players that New Orleans has had, just because he needed to change his scenery. He's he's a little bit out of the spotlight now, not like a ton, but a little bit. People aren't necessarily comparing him much anymore to like Kevin Durant and stuff like that. I'm happy to see that he's starting to put a good season together.
I think he's always had that potential, and he's shown it. He just hasn't been able to really put it together. And I think New Orleans has also kind of let him take the shots and let him handle the ball and kind of shown the aggression to become that 25-point scorer. With your thing about can he play alongside All-Stars, I think that comes to the question, if you're New Orleans, I would pay him and hope it works out, because he's not worth losing him, because come this offseason, teams would be begging at his door. And
I think you should definitely pay him, but there's also not many teams with money this offseason too. So I think that you want to pay him, but you don't want to make him mad.
A lot of the teams that do have money would be looking for a guy in his age range.
Yeah, I don't think that he's gonna leave. I'm pretty sure they're gonna lock him up with a max contract. But
do you think they regret not giving him a rookie extension?
No, because you can't know until he plays. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to. I think that was smart for them because they're still trying to figure out who they're gonna be.
And remember, he was coming off claw issues at the time, so for them it was probably smart. I mean, it would have been great if they signed him for like say $20 million a year, because then you could have him for a lot cheaper than what would be like $28-29 million come this offseason. But at the time, you had to look at both sides. Is it worth it? And I think they made that smart choice not signing him, because he had yet to prove himself as a max player.
All right, let's move on. We each have one fact left. Who wants to go first?
Sawyer?
Yeah.
just never any change.
No, we don't like to change things up here, you know.
Except for
48 minutes or less, so, you know.
We always change who actually does the introduction every week.
I think I do it better, but that's just me. But my last fact is, and it's kind of not really a weird one. It's just kind of like a throw one out there kind of thing. Is Fred VanVleet leads the league in minutes per game with about almost 38 minutes per game. And, you know, I know we talked about a few weeks ago about how much Kyle Lowry, was playing. And now we were talking about the fact that Fred VanVleet was now going to have to play a lot of minutes. And look what we have here. He's playing 38 minutes a game. But it's not like they're doing bad. He's like, him and Pascal are actually in the top 5 for most minutes per game in the NBA. But I mean, they're doing what they have to do because they've had injuries to Kyle Lowry and Ibaka and stuff. So
Fred VanVleet for me is probably one of the most interesting players coming this off season, with arguably being one of the best players on the market. And it's going to be interesting. The more he plays, the better he looks. He's shown that he can take on a larger role. I know his efficiency's gone down, but he's taken on a larger role. He's also a great defender and a smart defender. It's just where's the margin of how much are you going to pay him? Because for me, considering the cap going up and more players in his margin, he's somewhere around 20 million. But do you want to pay 25? And what happens for Toronto? Are they going to try to keep him? Where are they headed? In what direction?
My thing with paying VanVleet is kind of is he going to be your starting shooting guard? Is he going to play alongside Kyle Lowry? Are you going to return Kyle Lowry past the 1-year extension? Because if you're going to eventually put him off the bench and get a different shooting guard, then you're not going to want to be paying your bench guy $20 million a year, because bench guys make around $12 million, right? Like your 6 man is around that.
And paying him now, they have Giannis expectations in 2021.
Giannis, Pascal, and Fred VanVleet. I would love to see that, but I also don't want Giannis to leave Milwaukee. So
yeah, but Giannis, Pascal, and OG. Ooh.
So moving on. So my last actual thing, which might be an overreaction, it's about the NBA has a superstar bias when it comes to sitting players. So what I mean by that is that, so last season when Anthony Davis requested a trade, the NBA made New Orleans play him. They had to play him because he wasn't technically injured. And if they did, New Orleans was going to be fined. Even though for New Orleans it wasn't smart to play him, because they needed to make sure he stayed healthy in order to not affect his trade stock. But then this year, the Memphis Grizzlies have a player called Andre Iguodala that is fit to play and is healthy and isn't even on the team. He's at home. So how come the NBA hasn't taken any action against that? Is it because Andre Iguodala's not a top talent? Is that the only time that it actually matters? Or is the NBA just being hypocritical and basing it on a case-by-case situation?
Well, for example, with Anthony Davis, I think it's because of how public it was, the whole thing, anyways, and the fact that he's a star player in the league, and people pay to go see him, so it becomes a money thing. And Iguodala's not the kind of guy that's going to draw in a crowd. But I think it really has to do a lot with the how public everything was with the trade rumors and stuff like that, and the idea of him sitting out and not playing anymore for the season because he didn't want to play for them anymore. I just think that's probably the reason why.
Yeah, there's always going to be a superstar bias because of money, because at the end of the day, the NBA is a business. And also the NBA's job is to please its clients, and a lot of people want to see Anthony Davis play. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd say if you're a hardcore fan, like, I love Andrew Iguodala, I would love to see him play. But as a hardcore basketball fan, I also don't want Andre Iguodala to play because I want him to stay healthy, because I know he's a key piece in an upcoming trade or in the buyout market, and he could be an influencer in the NBA championships this year. So it goes hand in hand. I think there is bias, but I wouldn't call it an overreaction. It's just the truth. Like, there's bias when it comes to superstars, and there's bias because it's money. It's a business.
Yeah, exactly. Andre Iguodala isn't going to affect whether people buy tickets or not. Anthony Davis will.
It also, like I said, wasn't very public.
Overall, at least with the hardcore fans, it was pretty public. The whole, when Andre Iguodala was, during the offseason, was like, I don't want to be here or whatever, trade me. And they were like, no, you're not going to get traded because
no, when I mean public, I mean like full on public, where this is like something that was talked about almost daily.
Yeah, like Anthony Davis was also pretty obnoxious when he requested a trade.
All right, George, take us out.
Last fact, baby. So, my last fact.
This better be good, because you just said baby like if it was the most exciting thing in the world.
Yeah, don't screw this up, man.
All right, baby. The rookie class of the 2019-2020 NBA season has been really, really good.
You fucked it up, man.
What did I...
It's fine. We're going to cut Lewis's part out.
You can't censor me, man.
The rookie class for the 2019-2020 season has been a lot better than previously expected. It was a class that was seen as the top 3, and then who cares after that? But you've seen Ja Morant has been stellar. I think he's been better than expected. He's just stealing the Rookie of the Year right now. You have Tyler Hero's been really good. You have PJ Washington's been great. You have earlier you were mentioning Brandon Clark's been amazing. Rui Hachimura, his teammate, while I don't think as good as him, has had valuable quality minutes for Washington. You have I don't know if you guys want to chime in here. Overall, I would say I'm more surprised. I'm surprised because I didn't expect him to be as quality, as good as they've been. And maybe the class doesn't have a lot of superstar talent. With I would say maybe Zion, who's currently not even playing, and Ja be the only ones that I would say have superstar talent. But you do have a lot of really good players that I can see having a good future in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we talked about earlier. Like, you don't need a top pick. You don't need it to be I need a superstar in order to succeed in this league. Like, you need at least somebody. Like, most of the time, you need at least somebody to take you over the edge. But when it comes to building around them, like, you don't need to hit on a lot. Like, oh, I need to make sure I get, like, the best player possible. You know, like, so I'm the tank and all that crap. No. You can find talent. You just have to know where to look.
Yeah, I think that this will be that draft that maybe 5 years down the line when we're looking at the draft, we'll notice that, wow, man, this draft actually had a lot of really good basketball players. Maybe not anybody that's going to become like a top 10 player, but a lot of maybe starters or six-man or rotation pieces for really good teams. And that in all can actually create a pretty good draft. I mean, have you guys seen Zion's numbers? They're like so incredible that Basketball Reference doesn't even have them calculated.
He's the best player of all time.
Best player of all time. So I've been probably decently impressed with the rookie class so far. I mean, it's still early. Some of them, I think PJ Washington has kind of come down a little bit, and it happens. They're rookies. They're not used to the NBA. But I think overall, it looks like a solid draft class that's gonna put up some players that we'll be talking about for a couple of years as good rotation players.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just overall that this, season's gone off pretty well. It's got me excited, and I can't wait for more. Only 1 month in, like, let's get going,
Yeah, so real quick, some shameless plugs. Not really. But before we end today's show, I just wanted to let you guys know that we'll be coming. I won't be here next week, so we'll be recording a part, and then these guys will fill up with any news that might happen in the upcoming week. And then we should be coming up with a quarter season NBA awards episodes pretty soon. Expect that in the month of December.
All right, so thanks for listening to this week on 48 Minutes or Less NBA Podcast. As always, please rate and review. We read all feedback. And please share this podcast with your friends. It will help us grow. See you guys. You'll hear from us next week.
Man, so it's like you almost have that memorized, right?
I pulled that up.
Memories.
I pulled that up because it's not memorized. I wanted to make sure. I looked at last week and I saw here's a big fuck you, and I forgot that I put that there. For you, Lewis.
So have a good weekend, guys. Bye.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
And hope
We're not going to keep that. There's no point in that.